G'day and welcome to the farm. I'm Katja Williams, the rural mum, and today we're talking You've Married the Farmer, Now What? And we're joined by Ben and Bree Meek here from the Blaney region in New South Wales, Australia. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for sitting down for us today. I'd just like you to start by introducing yourselves and telling us a little bit about you.
Ladies first.
I'm Brianna and I grew up in northern Victoria, and my background is dairy farming. My parents are newly retired in the last 5 or 6 years from about 30 plus years in the industry, and I had a typical rural upbringing and thoroughly enjoyed running around, being close with animals. I guess dairy farming, you get that exposure of coming in close contact with cattle all the time, every day. I have fond memories of being in the calf shed, helping raise calves, and one of 5 kids. So I was in a very busy household. Mum and Dad were always progressive with their farming, always wanting to get the most out of their pastures. Mum was always on top of the AI programs, and then I met Ben and my life changed a lot.
So Ben, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, I'm born and bred on 600 acres near Hobbies Yards, south of Blaney, Central Tablelands, New South Wales. And I guess I'm 4th generation on the place. Dad's still very much the sole operator. I'm involved on a contractor type role on a day or 2 a week at the moment. And we're working, I have 2 brothers, and we're working on the beginnings of a succession plan. And I guess it was nice to think back to early days of dating Bree and going to the dairy and seeing a different way of things being done.
So tell us a little bit about how you met and where your life has gone from there.
We met about nearly 11 years ago at a mutual friend's 21st, and started dating, did the long distance thing while I was at Wagga attending university there, and then we went to Canada for a gap year, did a work sort of tourism visa for about 8-9 months, and in that time we were very much living in each other's pockets and decided that working together was good fun, but doing it every day wasn't quite for us. And then upon returning to Australia, then we both did a little bit of work together on a beef and sheep property, but then also had a couple of days where we worked at other jobs. So that way we still got that time together, and then also had our freedom, our independence.
Bree got a dairying fix with a local dairy here for a time.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's good. And so what year did you get married, and then when did your 2 beautiful daughters join?
End of 2017 we got married,
Yep.
and did the usual honeymoon and a few bits and pieces, and then 2 little ladies have come along, Natalie, who's 3.5, and Lily, who's 1.5.
Beautiful.
And that brings us up to pretty much today.
Today.
Now you both reside on
On Mum and Dad's farm.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
We're
Hobbies Yard.
probably within stone's throw, literally, probably of Mum and Dad's
Yep.
place, which might be a little bit too close for Bree at times, but it certainly has its benefits when it comes to babysitting and support, and like, just drop the girls up the hill for a few minutes sort of thing. Or,
Yeah. So Bree, how did you find moving from your dairy background onto a cattle and sheep enterprise at Ben's place?
Very different.
Yeah.
I think the winters are far more severe in cold,
Yeah.
and the summers were a real shock, almost slightly drought-like, because where I grew up it was irrigation country, so we had green grass pretty much all year, all the time, unless it was extreme conditions, and then to have dry paddocks during summer, I was a bit like, well, what's going on? Where's the grass gone? Everything's gone to head, and then everything's sort of managed for just changes of seasons, whereas dairy farming, as I say, the irrigation country is a bit different.
Yeah.
I also found the change in terms of dairy has that regular milking, so you have very much a set routine. Going to beef and sheep, throw that out the window, that doesn't matter anymore. You obviously have your intense times like shearing, or when you've got to do calf marking and the like, it's intense for a few days, and then the timeline or time pressure is sort of a little bit more steady beyond that. So really different.
Did you find that there was a certain tactic or method that you implemented to help yourself with that change of routine or that change of mindset?
I think because I did still work a few days a week at a dairy farm locally, that was nice for me to still sort of have my hand in at what I'm used to. But I think I tried to embrace the changes. I learnt new skills thanks to Ben in terms of fencing. I hadn't picked up a pair of fencing pliers before I'd met Ben. Just tried to embrace the change, embrace that I was out there learning, and I think the big thing was trying to accept I'm not going to pick it up right away because I haven't grown up with this, it's all new, and I just have to accept that.
I probably needed to be a little bit more patient in teaching those sorts of things too, because you realise that not everyone is born with a set of fencing pliers in their hand.
No.
And I learned all sorts of things about running out of temp hot wire and that sort of stuff from in Bree's side of
Yep.
Well, certainly, early days was down at the dairy was quite interesting to learn just about a different style of agriculture.
Yep. And so you mentioned before when you were in Canada that when you were working and living in each other's pockets, you needed that independence. How did you find that independence once moving to the farm with Ben?
As I say, I think we chose to, I think it was mutual that we both wanted to have days where we worked elsewhere or did other things. If I had a day off or sometime on the weekend, I would definitely seek out sort of, I've got to go buy some fabrics so I can do a great hobby of mine, or today I'm going to go full steam ahead in making some nice biscuits and whatnot because I thoroughly enjoy being in the kitchen. It's about finding that balance and relishing in your hobbies or whatever it is that sort of makes you tick, and going forth with that, because you literally can't do everything together because you'll drive each other nuts.
Yeah.
And I think too that probably that challenging initial sort of transition when we did get to Canada and work was pretty full on. We there was a bit of time there where we had to communicate and compromise with one another. I think Bree didn't think working Ben was a very nice kind of, it wasn't the boyfriend she thought she had, and I probably realised I didn't have, I probably didn't cut any slack in terms of I expected if we're at work, we're workmates, and she needed to be doing everything to the same standard that I did, and that's something I had to adapt to. And so I think it's probably like lots of things in relationships, you have to both communicate and then also just compromise and cut each other a bit of slack.
Yeah. And on that too, like I realised I had come from uni and then we took the gap year, and I'd probably been not quite as work fit, and within the first couple of weeks I think we averaged 10 hours a day plus, and that was like physically, mentally, emotionally,
and
all of it was big, very compounding. I just went, oh my gosh, what have we done?
Cold old windy prairie, it was just, it was
extreme. Yeah.
I don't know if we touched on that, but we were working attached to a feedlot, so the cow-calf operation was attached to a feedlot near just a bit east of Calgary in Alberta.
Big operation, those ones.
It was, it was. I think for that region, it was a fairly big feedlot, and then a big cow-calf operation. They had a mile-by-mile block with 4 pivots on it, and we were pretty much marking, tagging and marking calves in the paddock straight off mum, vaccinating, and they had different owners, so often different brands, varied quality of cattle that might want to eat you at times. There was a bit of time spent.
Yeah, that was a bit of a surprise for me. Every dairy cow you could just about go up and touch and pat, and this one's trying to eat me or roll me over.
Bree often spent a bit of time on the stick trying to keep him away, and when the stick went flying and Bree went back in the buggy, I knew it was time to follow her. Yeah.
So from your experience both over there in Canada as well as being back on farm, back at home, either from the dairy or from where you call home now, what would you say would be your top 5 lessons of what you've learnt in the agriculture industry from that introduction?
I think I didn't realise that I had high expectations of my partner to also work to that standard, and that's probably something. It was actually interesting. It was good that we probably learnt that in Canada, where we were both out of our depth, rather than me being on my home turf and having that expectation or something like that. So I think probably my expectations needed to be adjusted. Manage expectations. Probably giving each other a bit of time off, which was probably hard in Canada. Still do the fun things. Remember why you're a couple. I'd never thought of agriculture being maybe a little bit lonely or isolated, but perhaps it was a little bit during those Canada days. We were a bit isolated together, which was a bit of a pressure cooker, which is both good and bad.
Good and bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think in hindsight, perhaps trying to not necessarily schedule, but make sure you do get that independent time, because you need it to be human. You need it to express yourself in your own personal way, and you don't need someone either breathing down your neck or either encouraging you how to go forward with something. Sometimes you just need that space. And I think maybe also to finding time to get away from it, like go together and do something completely different, something maybe both of you haven't done before, or just stepping out of that situation I think is good. And I think we did that at certain times. Righto, that's it, we haven't gone and treated ourselves or done something, let's go to town and let's go have a nice dinner somewhere or do something, so that way you're getting that break of that constant life and work, and you're just going around on a treadmill.
Yeah, it can end up a bit on repeat, can't it?
Yeah. Was there any particular advice given to both of you, either when you were married or when you first moved to the block, or even independently as kids growing up on the land, that really resonated and stuck with you, that you find that you refer to either on the occasion or daily?
I think the only one that comes to mind on that one is I think Mum expressed that she didn't feel like, some people sort of say, oh, we were made for each other, or it was sort of fate that we were together, but Mum always sort of said, that she felt like meeting someone was a bit of a chance, and then it was a matter of working, whether you need to work with someone that you can compromise with. I think compromise is probably the biggest buzzword that's stuck in my brain with that, like sort of someone that you can both communicate and compromise with, because it's not always going to be rosy. And then I remember probably come back from Tamworth or something, from a party and having a yarn about that sort of thing, and that we were both on the same page, that that we were just committed to each other, but it was all about compromising with one another. Yeah.
Fate might have brought us together, but we're going to put the work in.
Yes,
yeah.
And I think, I can't remember when it was exactly, it might have been just after we were married or just before, one of my aunties had said to me that marriage is a beautiful thing, but you have to work at it.
Yeah.
And without that input, you're not getting anything out.
Yeah.
Which I think is really, really important. Yeah.
Beautiful piece of knowledge from both.
Yeah.
So Natalie and Lily have now joined you on the farm. So what would you say, Bree, as a mum?
Yep.
And what would be your top mum tips, tricks and hacks for raising kids on the land?
All sorts of four-wheel drive capable prams, backpacks, front carriers will change your life, because you can't be doing this all the time.
Yeah.
You can't carry the kids around forever. Being in cattle yards with a backpack and a child in the back, and you still got your hands, you feel like you're relatively useful still. And hopefully the child's happy they're getting that exposure. People might think that they're just sitting there or falling asleep and enjoying the free ride, but hopefully they're experiencing things, seeing things, and learning something, whatever that is. I think also too, when the first few times that I sort of doubled back into work, I did sort of half a day doing farm work with our first, and I was still feeding, trying to ride the bike, had her in the front carrier, then at lunchtime whenever, stop, got to feed her, got to change her. I think learning to accept that a child is a beautiful thing in your life, but sometimes it might feel a little bit like a handicap, and that is okay. Sometimes you might feel time pressure. Okay, we've really got to make this happen. There's a storm coming, there's a truck coming, whatever it might be. Take a deep breath and just say, it's all right. I'm doing the utmost I can, and it will happen when it does. I'll finish when I finish. That's it.
I'm probably on the same vein with that. You just got to remove expectations of what you thought you would get done, and any progress is good progress.
Still
with the kids. I think maybe more for the dad point of view too. It's very easy to just want to keep getting things done, and like they sort of say, farm's one of the most dangerous places. Finding that line of what you will and won't do with your kids around is probably is one to be cautious of. And just realising that everything's not going to go forward at the same rate. And like, I guess within agriculture we're all growing something, and it's easy to get production focused, but you just got to maybe step back and go, what we're producing is hopefully a couple of great little kids, rather than even if we're not quite going as forward as fast as we'd like to.
Settle
Yeah.
for a slightly slower pace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other day we were doing some fencing with all 4 of us, and I think I would have been faster by myself. I had Lily following me along, and Nat's dropping wire. And I think probably going more to a dairying side of, with one of those little, you take a little from each side's family, having a bit of more of a set dinner time. I never grew up with a set dinner time. With Dad's a shocker for, like, Mum will have dinner and then Dad just doesn't come in, sort of thing. Or he's very relaxed with that sort of thing. And it took a while to adapt to that. But Bree sort of set a dinner time, which works. Routine works for kids, works for husbands.
Yeah.
You can always go back out afterwards.
Yeah, and that's certainly in summer we've been doing that a bit.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a good one.
Yeah, it seems to work well for us because it means that once the kids are fed, clean and in bed,
Yeah.
you might have an hour or so where you can be productive
Yeah.
at the end of the day. Whether it be just tidying things up or whatever it is, you can actually get something done.
Yeah. That's also probably, it's a good cut-off in terms of just a bit of work-life balance. I'm trying to think, because we don't have things like harvest, it's pretty rare that you're not in at 6:30.
Yeah.
Unless something breaks.
Yeah. Or and like managing Coldwater Creek, which is sort of a half hour away.
Yeah.
There's times when it just, like you say, it all
Yeah.
just goes wrong. You're just down the
Yeah.
paddock, and that's just a matter of, once again, communication. Trying to give Bree
Or
a
when
ring.
we're both there, and I visited Ben out at Coldwater Creek, and we've had Natalie at foot, but Lily was still in my tummy, and I was 30-something weeks pregnant, and the cows were calving, and there was
We
a
had to
cow
get
that needed assistance with the vet, and next thing you know, it's 6:30, and I'd luckily packed some snacks, so Natalie and I were sitting on the edge of the cattle yards
Nat
and
was playing in the
snacking
mud.
away, and
It was getting dark, and the vet and I were working on this.
got home and had dinner by 7. It was still okay.
Yeah. As long as you've got those snacks.
Yes.
Bridging snacks.
Yeah, actually, that's probably the other thing too. Is
Yeah.
just when you go out in the paddock, you think,
Or
just a job to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Throw a spare nappy, a water bottle, a bit of sunscreen, a
And
hat,
food.
pretty much a go bag of everything
Yeah.
you need just to keep the kids happy. Because
Yeah.
there's nothing worse than being down the paddock and going, just got to get 5 more things
5
done, or 5 minutes
Yeah.
more, and the kids are just
Yeah.
like, nah, we're
Yeah.
knock off time, Dad. Like,
Not enough can be said about just having tummies filled.
Yeah.
Will make far more contented children.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, all the plastic toys in the world can't compare with sticks
No.
and rocks and leaves, and most of them are organic too. At the end of the day, like if they put it in their mouth, it doesn't really matter. I think.
Maybe I think for myself, I find, I guess my work is my children, or being at home and
At the moment, yeah.
looking after the house and taking care of the girls. And I think I've recently found for myself, for my own sanity, I need to carve out and make a bit of me time and do a little bit of exercise just to make me feel like I've achieved something for myself for that day, whether it's a little bit of yoga or go for a run or a swim or something. Just being fit and having that time alone is good.
Making a bit of an early start on the day
Yeah.
before the girls get up can be,
Yeah.
if you actually achieve
If you
something
can
before the
manage it.
kids, there's another one. If you can do something before the kids get up, that's that's golden. Yeah.
So coming from 2 separate industries and now being on the farm together, you've both experienced some wet seasons and some dry seasons. So we'll start with drought. Bree, from the dairy industry and the insight that you bring onto the farm now, what are some of your top tips for dealing with drought?
Can see that getting outside help sometimes is a really important step. If you can, everyone wishes they could see into a magic crystal ball and see what's coming up, and I'll sell the cattle or I'll sell a few sheep now so that way it's more manageable. But I think even though people go through really tough times, I think it's so important to stay connected with the community, stay connected with friends, and as I say, branch out to one of your local agricultural centres or be in a agricultural group of multiple farmers to step out of your own situation and go, oh, hey, my mate's doing it just as tough, or hey, like everyone else is in the same situation. Make sure that you're not feeling isolated, because that's when it can really start to turn sour.
Yeah, Ben?
Yeah, I guess from my point of view, oftentimes during dry times, I've been working between Dad's, the property I manage at Carcoar, and then also a bit other contracting other places. And so you see a bit of across the board thing, and maybe the bad thing that's happening on each place catches up with you a bit. So being able to just talk with one another, talk to each other about that sort of stuff. The only other one that comes to mind, and it's not my original idea, but I've heard some old wisdom of like, they sort of say put the last litre of water on the garden, like keep your garden around your house green and thriving, and it's just a bit of an oasis to come home at the end of the day and get away from things being pretty dry and horrible in the paddock.
Yeah.
And yeah, farmers, I think there's mental health being a bit more in the spotlight these days. I think there's some great just pretty informal groups of cockies that get together and have a meal once a month or something like that, and I think that can do a lot for people. Certainly one started in our local area, but I know of a few blokes that actually really benefited from it. Like
Yeah. And one that's probably more relevant to home, for those who haven't worked in the snow before. So the snow and the cold, because Blaney Carcoar area can get quite cold.
Yeah.
So I mean, that would be completely alien to myself.
Yeah.
So is there anything that really comes along with that, or the wet?
I think try and put the tractor keys away as much as you can. It just makes a mess, whether it's raining or snowing. We're very lucky in that we don't have, like, the snow might hit in a big snowfall, you might have it around for a few days, but it's not, it disappears, and the benefits in terms of like your nitrogen and some of that stuff can be pretty good. It's probably, and often when it snows, all of a sudden it goes calm and it's actually not too cold.
Yeah.
I think for our climate, when it's sort of sleeting sideways, that's the stuff that's hard on livestock, makes everything mushy, and hard on probably people and the like. So I guess having probably just good infrastructure in terms of, and machinery for making feeding out as painless as possible.
Yeah. And shifting livestock before, like if you have any forewarning, not that you get a forewarning when it's going to be a really, really wet winter, but certainly in bad, sleety, snowy weather, shifting stock ahead of time, so that way you know that they've got shelter, they've got pasture, and if you can't get to them with the tractor, at least you know that they've got food and water and shelter.
In wet times too, I've heard just the biggest thing is almost coming clean with Bree, like when I get home and just saying, this is what happened today, honey, and that can really, what are they, sort of halved? But
ease the pain a bit.
yeah, and she knows then where I'm coming from and the kind of day I might have had.
Thank you, Ben and Bree, for joining us today and talking to us about marrying your farmer and what now.